suggests that Trump may be mulling more sanctions against Iran. Earlier this week, the US president had demanded compensation from Iran, further intensifying the rift in the talks and throwing the future of the Strait of Hormuz into deep uncertainty. The demand came after Iran itself called for war reparations from the United States and Israel for the destruction caused by months of military action.
Well, we're going to ask for money for the damage they've done over a 50-year period. Whether you go SS Cole or whether you go all of the people that were so badly hurt, so badly wounded or killed, many thousands of people, and maybe damages for the 52,000 protesters over the last 4 months that were killed in Iran. We think their family should get damages for killing their person or their child or mother, father that were protesting. It's at least, it was 52,000 a month and a half ago. So now what is it? So if there's damages to be paid.
Now remember, there is a fundamental question facing Washington at the moment. Can economic pressure succeed where military force and diplomacy have so far failed? Remember, the United States and Iran agreed to an interim ceasefire in June this year, but that arrangement didn't quite help.
Fighting resumed, and Washington has since continued military operations on and off while restricting Iranian shipping. Now, the administration is once again resorting to economic pressure. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says the U.S. military can maintain its naval blockade indefinitely. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has also warned that Washington is preparing additional measures aimed at isolating Iran economically.
Well, the shift comes as the U.S. weapons stockpiles have dwindled and the talks are reaping no results yet. The immediate target is Iran's ability to generate revenue. As per a Financial Times report, Iranian oil exports have fallen sharply, with shipping and satellite data indicating that its main oil export infrastructure has been largely idle. The International Monetary Fund estimates the overall economy of Iran has shrunk by 5.4%, and the Iranian government recently reported an annual inflation rate of 88.6%.
In an interview earlier this week, the president had asserted that Iran doesn't have money left to fight the war further. He said, and I quote, "I'm their banker."
But economic pain does not necessarily translate into political concessions. Analysts say Iran's leadership may already be prepared to absorb the enormous economic costs instead of surrendering its leverage over the Strait of Hormuz.
Iran seems to be unfazed by this pressure. Ismail Baghei, spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry, said, and I quote, "Whenever Washington proves itself incapable of pursuing diplomacy, it retreats into sanctions, and whenever those sanctions fail to produce results, it simply increases the dose." Now, President Trump says the United States has total control over the Strait of Hormuz, while Iran says they decide what happens in the strait. Attacks continue not just in Hormuz, but in focus has shifted to Bab el-Mandeb and Red Sea as well. Most recently, 2 UAE-operated oil tankers were attacked by drones while transiting through the strait. The UAE blamed Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. So can economic pressure change Iran's behavior? Well, not really. In fact, the pressure is not free of cost for the United States or the global economy.
Well, disruption in the Strait of Hormuz reduces the flow of energy through the critical global choke point, contributing to higher oil prices and increasing pressure on consumers, which essentially means the longer the standoff continues, the more the administration faces a political calculation of its own. Can Washington withstand the economic consequences long enough to force Tehran to blink? That is the big question. For now, President Donald Trump appears to be caught in a fix, and despite sanctions, blockade, and military deterrence, the immediate question is whether the President of the United States of America can get his way in this war.
Dr. Ian Ralby is the president of Auxilium Worldwide and a recognized expert in maritime security. He's now joining us live on the broadcast from Baltimore. Ralby, thank you very much for making time for us and welcome to the broadcast. Are sanctions weakening America's adversaries or America itself? Your reaction?
It's a very good question, and I think that what we've done is use sanctions as our tool for so long that we've sanctioned so much of the world, it has created its own community. We've kicked so many out of the global economic tent that they form their own tent. And this is something we need to be very careful about, because splitting the global economy is extremely dangerous for global stability. What we've seen is that countries like Russia, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, and others have started to work together with key enablers. And those enablers are some of the biggest, most powerful, wealthy states in the world. And so what we now see is the BRICS, for example, containing all of those states and working as an economic unit that is now beginning to protect that economic interest with military power. They were exercising in South African waters earlier this year, doing naval exercises, much like we've seen the European Union move from an economic community into a community that has a naval force to back it up. And so this means that 49% of the world's population is currently in the BRICS, and about 56% will be if the ongoing membership expansion continues. That is a really concerning situation, because most of the sanctioned world is in that economic bloc, and it means that off-dollar trading could occur without any kind of imposition of penalties from the U.S. financial institutions or other regulators. That will fracture how the world works.
You know, which is what I was coming to next, Dr. Yen, that don't you think then that, the United States of America risks losing leverage, because countries now, and several of them have already started building alternatives to its economic system, to the American economic system?
Yes, I think if you're going to talk about competition, which is how the U.S. phrases its global posture with many of the other key peer states, you have to be competing. You have to put value propositions on the table. And if your value proposition is either you do what we say or we punish you, it doesn't feel very appealing for a lot of countries around the world when there is another option on the table that may seem more attractive. And I think the U.S. is starting to potentially feel the effects of having talked about competition but not having actually competed. At the same time, an America First policy may sound very good on the home front, but what it does is it isolates the United States and its economic relations with the rest of the world. Punitive tariffs are being used very prolifically by the United States administration right now. Unfortunately, people don't like being punished very much, and so when they have a choice between continuing to work with that punishing power or with somebody else, they may choose somebody else.
Dr. Ian, finally, who do you think is getting hurt the most? Is it Americans or is it the world when Donald Trump uses tariffs and now sanctions to hurt the world?
Well, very sadly, I think everybody suffers, and that's the real truth. Ultimately, the geopolitics of it are somewhat irrelevant, but when communities that are already on the brink of starvation, of poverty, of challenges that are so extreme, we are talking about basic human survival, are no longer able to afford any kind of means towards advancing life, everybody begins to suffer. And what we're seeing is those margins are being crossed, those thresholds are being crossed all over the world. Americans will suffer. There's a time delay, though, because we have had such a fortunate run. But there is likely a point at which the bottom will fall out. And unfortunately, as we come into the winter months this year, the effect not only of tariffs, but of this war and the sort of attempt to control the world by narrative rather than by reality will end up falling apart, because unfortunately you can't heat a home with a narrative or a talking point. You have to heat it with fuel, and if it's not available, it just isn't available. And if it's too expensive, you just can't purchase it.
All right, so let's see and wait and see what really happens in this war. Dr. Ian Ralby, thanks very much for joining us on Beyond and sharing your perspective.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
And from talking about the economic pressure that President Donald Trump is, putting to the world, now let's talk about the pressure that is putting on Iran. And the Iranian war is turning out to be an ultimate test for U.S. military might. This is not the first time when a seemingly lesser power has managed to stand firm against American military prowess.
Well, the withdrawal of American forces in Vietnam and Afghanistan serve as prime examples of this. After 5 months of war, the world's most powerful military, equipped with state-of-the-art technology, has failed to achieve its objectives in Iran.
The United States' largest arms exporter in the world is running low on drones and interceptors. According to a Washington Post report, U.S. military has lost 25% of its MQ-9 Reaper drone arsenal in Iranian war theater. U.S. forces fired 850 Tomahawk cruise missiles and 1,000 Patriot and THAAD interceptors in the first month of the Iranian war.
The U.S. Central Command claimed to have struck 13,000 targets inside Iran during Operation Epic Fury. Despite air and naval dominance, the U.S. military has so far failed to trigger a collapse of Iranian government and military. USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group has been at sea for more than 260 days without a port call. Family members of the crew aboard the Abraham Lincoln have raised concerns about the living conditions on the Nimitz-class aircraft carrier. According to a report by the U.S. military news organization Stars and Stripes, some family members reported that sailors also attempted to throw themselves overboard.
Now, in a post on social media, U.S. Central Command fact-checked these reports and called them false claims and rampant misreporting. The statement also added that the crew remains resilient and resolved. At the same time, the USS George Washington aircraft carrier is reportedly set to take over from the Abraham Lincoln in West Asia. Amidst this, Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth has insisted that the situation has been misrepresented.
Completely misrepresented. Listen, we make sure that every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we can provide them at every single moment. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody. What they do in those high seas and those austere conditions with less port calls, it's incredible.
But Iranian generals are taking notes of these reports. For how long can America sustain the war posture against Iran? IRGC generals are willing to see out Trump's entire presidential term. Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Naqvi, a top advisor to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said, and I quote, "One way is to prolong this war until we get to the next term of the presidency and cause attrition." He also added that the American military is weaker than what Iran initially perceived. In fact, it's not just Iran that thinks that it can withstand prolonged American military pressure. An Israeli media report citing Mossad officials claims that Iran is rapidly rebuilding its military arsenal, and it could restore its capabilities to pre-war levels as early as mid-2027.
Building a single THAAD interceptor takes roughly 3 years to manufacture. On the other hand, Iran can manufacture an estimated 40 to 100 ballistic missiles per month. Shortages of munitions have constrained Donald Trump's military options, who is now pivoting to non-military pressure tactics against Iran.
Well, with that, let's talk about Israel. The country's political landscape is rapidly changing months ahead. This year's parliamentary elections, alarm bells are ringing for the country's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the person who is challenging him is former IDF chief Gadi Eisenkot.
Polls are suggesting a tight race, but Netanyahu's party seems to be in constant decline, at least as far as projections go. In a 120-member parliament, Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition is projected to win 48 seats, 13 seats behind the majority mark. Gadi Eisenkot's Yashar is projected to emerge as the largest party with 23 seats, which could combine to 57 seats in coalition. Just 3 seats behind the majority mark. It's not the alliance partners that are dragging Netanyahu down. The decline in projections comes as Netanyahu's Likud drops to 21, 2 fewer than Gadi Eisenkot's Yashar, which leads the poll with 23 seats. The second largest party is Naftali Bennett's Bi Yachad with 14 seats.
Now, if the projection turns out to be accurate, smaller parties will hold the key to the Prime Minister's office. Otzma Yehudit and United Torah Judaism have 8 seats each, while Shas is projected to win 7. Hadash Tal gets 6 and Ram 5, and both the religious Zionist Party and Zionist Home are projected to take 4 seats each. And this is where additional seats for Eisenkot could come from. Let's see how the numbers suggest a potential path to a 61-seat majority for the opposition. The opposition bloc currently stands at 57 seats, with 4 additional seats projected for Zionist Home. That bloc could reach the 61-seat threshold that is needed to form the government. Arab parties are projected to hold another 11, but the final picture could still change significantly. And remember, there's another major headline from this survey. Gadi Eisenkot has widened his lead over Benjamin Netanyahu in public preference for Prime Minister. 49% of the respondents said they prefer Eisenkot, compared with just 38% for Netanyahu. And that is an 11-point advantage for Gadi Eisenkot.
The numbers come as Likud faces internal tensions ahead of its party primaries, while political divisions continue to deepen, and with several parties hovering around the electoral threshold, even small shifts in support could significantly change the race for a 61-seat majority. The election battle clearly is far from settled.
Well, from elections in Israel, Eric, let's shift our focus and tell our viewers about elections in Russia. That's right, Russia, a country at war, is scheduled to conduct parliamentary elections next month. But in the last few days, it has made headlines for an anti-war party being banned from contesting.
Well, on Monday this week, Russia's highest court banned Yabloko, the country's anti-war party, from contesting parliamentary polls. The Supreme Court gave its verdict on a lawsuit that was filed by Russia's Rodina party, which is considered pro-Kremlin. The Yabloko party faces several accusations, including infringing copyright with election materials, alleged participation in extremist activities, and receiving foreign funding. But the anti-war leader says the party will not give up, and it is willing to file an appeal against the Russian Supreme Court's ban. As the leader of the only registered anti-war party of the country, its leader, Nikolai Ryabkov, said he will stay in the country despite the growing pressure.
I am in Russia, and I will remain in Russia, and Grigory Yavlinsky will remain in Russia as well. Therefore, I want to say that we do not blame a single person who left Russia out of concern for their safety. We understand that they have faced serious hardships. We feel sorry for these people and sympathize with them. However, changing what is happening in Russia, changing the political situation in Russia, is possible only by being inside the country.
То, что происходит в России, изменить политическую обстановку в России можно только находясь внутри.
However, the Yabloko, which is a liberal party, is not the only one that has been sidelined in the upcoming elections. Other leaders that are critical of Vladimir Putin and Russia's ongoing war have also been barred from contesting elections. And one of them is Boris Nadezhdin. The 63-year-old opposition leader of Russia has been living in exile in France. Nadezhdin says that the red lines in Russia have shifted since the war first began, and criticizing it is no longer possible within the country.
They say they want peace, and everyone says they want a return to normality. There is enormous demand for that. I think that's why I wasn't allowed to take part, and why Yabloko wasn't allowed to take part either.
All right, moving on, more than 50 Muslim and Christian leaders signed a new peace accord in Nigeria, aiming to ease religious tensions and promote harmony. The agreement was signed in Abuja, where faith leaders launched a new body focused on cooperation between the country's two main religious communities.
Well, the memorandum builds on the Abuja Declaration on Community Peace, an agreement aimed at fostering peace, coexistence among the region's diverse faith communities. The accord comes after years of violence by Islamist groups, including Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa province, while Christians have been among the victims. Analysts say the vast majority of those killed have been Muslims.
Definitely, we are very optimistic that this action will guide us and will help religious leaders to guide their utterances. They don't speak negatively, no hate speech, and no disrespect for other religious groups, and no calling of people as infidels or destroying other religious people just to lift yourself up. So we do hope in the future this will serve as a guide for honor, respect for each other, and that we must know that we are each other's keepers.
Religious leaders called the agreement a turning point, urging an end to hate speech, insults and rhetoric targeting other faiths. The deal also comes ahead of Nigeria's 2027 election, when religion is expected to remain a major factor in politics.
Focus on the religious divide has heightened last November when President Donald Trump called Nigeria a disgraced country and threatened military action over what he said was the treatment of Christians by Islamic terrorists.
The Muslim World League Secretary General Muhammad Al-Isa said that extremist ideas have harmed all communities. He expressed confidence that through the declaration's implementation, programs and coordinating bodies, the future in West Africa will, God willing, be far better.
Al-Isa said Nigeria was chosen for the initiative because of its commitment to social coexistence and religious tolerance, adding that the League was worked on preventive peace programs for more than a decade.
We chose the Federal Republic of Nigeria because of its commitment to social coexistence and religious tolerance. The Muslim World League has worked in this area through preventive peace programs for more than 10 years. This West African initiative is one of the League's programs around the world where we have made substantial gains. We carry out periodic assessments to ensure a high degree of accuracy and to make the results public.
Nigeria's population of more than 200 million is roughly divided between a predominantly Muslim north and a largely Christian south. Now, under the declaration, an executive body will oversee the implementation and conduct regular assessments of progress across the region.
Well, it looks like Nigeria is wanting unity, and it's harmonizing unity, and it wants to talk together and bring peace.
And it also comes amid what Donald Trump has been lashing out for them, at them for. So let's see how this goes, but a good step, of course, towards religious harmony.
It is a good step. You are watching Race to Power on WION The World as One. Stay with us. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
French football turns the page. Zinedine Zidane is the new head coach of Les Bleus. The French Football Federation has officially named Zidane as successor to Didier Deschamps, who steps down after 14 years in charge. For France, this is more than an appointment. It's the return of a national icon. Zidane was the heartbeat of France's 1998 World Cup triumph, scoring twice in the final against Brazil. He went on to win the Ballon d'Or the same year and led Les Bleus to Euro glory in 2000. As a manager, Zidane delivered an unprecedented 3 straight Champions League titles with Real Madrid. Now, the man who gave France its greatest footballing memory takes charge of its future. A national hero is back home, this time in the dugout.
Welcome back to Race to Power on WION The World as one, and thank you for staying with us. Let's now decode what is happening in India.
Well, the world's largest democracy, India, is gearing up for the biggest population enumeration exercise. India will count its population after 16 long years after the last census of 2011.
Well, the Minister of Home Affairs has released a Gazette notification revealing a list of questions that will be asked during the exercise, and that has led to a fierce political war. First, let's tell you what will be asked. The government has released the largest set of questionnaire since the beginning of the census exercise in India.
The 2027 census will have 40 questions. For reference, the last one had 29, which itself was a record. Let's dive deeper and look into what the key additional questions are. First up is caste. Earlier, remember, the questionnaire only included scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. But this time, caste data will be collected from every individual. Apart from this, remember, the census also includes a question on nationality, which the previous census did not have. Other additions are place of COVID vaccination, information about mobile number, Aadhaar number, and voter ID number. The issue of caste, remember, has been a political hot potato. Political parties and civil society groups have repeatedly asked the government to conduct caste census. Those in favor of the caste census argue that it is important to address social inequality, ensure equal distribution of resources, and monitor the effectiveness of affirmative action policies.
On the other hand, critics of caste census claim that it reinforces the caste system and leads to further social divisions. Whichever side of the debate you stand on, the contentious question of caste has made its debut in the 2026 census. According to the Indian constitution, the census is supposed to be carried out every 10 years. However, it got delayed due to the COVID pandemic in 2021. This will be India's 16th census and 8th since independence. 36 states and federally administered territories, more than 7,000 sub-districts, over 9,700 towns, and nearly 640,000 villages will be covered in this census. For the first time ever, enumerators will receive and submit the data via a mobile application. Residents can log in to the application using their phone number and fill the details digitally. This will replace traditional paper-based systems.
The first phase of census involving house census began in April this year. The door-to-door enumeration for most of the country is set to begin in February next year. All right, let us welcome on the show our guest. Ms. Neeja Chaudhary is joining us. She's a political commentator and senior journalist, joining us live from New Delhi. Ms. Chaudhary, thank you very much for sparing the time to speak with us. Can I start by asking you what your opinion is on this entire debate that has erupted over the caste question? Will it, make sure there is equal distribution of resources? Will it further harden the caste divisions in the society? Or do you think that this is needed, but that's the price you pay? They might harden, but the social equality is needed.
It will intensify the politics in the country. The demand for caste census was raised by the opposition, the leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, and the BJP, the ruling party, and its allies initially were reluctant, but they agreed to it. The reason is that caste census is synonymous with the empowerment of the other backward classes. That's a very large group. There are the upper castes, there are these OBCs as they're called, and there are the Dalits. Now, each one of them is politically today very powerful. Now, the OBCs are a community, there are very many castes under them, the most backward amongst them and so on. But they are being wooed by everybody. And the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, is an OBC. He's an OBC Prime Minister. Now, the BJP has been also wooing the OBCs. Earlier, it used to be a party of the upper caste. Now, it is a much more broad-based party. Now, that is one reason why the BJP could not refuse this demand and had to relent. Now, you see, the OBCs have 27% reservation in government jobs today. If that number goes up, from the 52% that the 1931 census revealed, then their demand for a greater share of the economic pie will also grow. Now, will that create a backlash from the forward caste? And there have been several signs of late that the young people want things to be done on merit. There was, norms that were put out by the University Grants Commission, which favored the OBCs, and that was met with resistance. And as a result, the whole thing has been stayed for the moment. But I can see young people who are anyway, on the rampage today, wanting a reform in the education and exam system so that gives them many more openings for livelihoods. If they find these doors closing further and other communities getting a benefit, I can see a backlash taking place, and that makes for trouble. I think
talking about that backlash, Ms. Chaudhry,
politics of the country.
Talking about that backlash, Ms. Chaudhry, do you think this caste enumeration being included in the census will be a setback for India? And how can that issue or that controversial issue be addressed? Who do you think should address that?
The government has to address that. And now that they've gone in for a caste census, the other problem is they have said one category will be caste, and the person will have to themselves volunteer what caste they belong to. It's not as if a list of castes is going to be given and they tick off. Like earlier, there used to be the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes specifically named. Now, suppose you find that lakhs of people have enumerated different castes. Now, how many castes there are in India? There is a varying, assessment of it. The Home Minister had once talked about 81 lakh castes. What are you going to do about them? Then in India, one caste is an OBC backward in one state, but a forward in another state. It's a very, very complex issue. All I'm saying is to try and simplify it for your viewer, that it's going to create a divide between the forward castes and the backward castes and the Dalits. And of course, it'll fuel your politics. I'm not saying that reservation is not necessary. It is necessary as affirmative action for those who have been on the peripheries of the structure and need a helping hand. But it is going to create a turbulence of a kind I don't know how we are going to handle.
All right.
The hot potato.
Yes, that would continue. Ms. Nija Chaudhry, thank you very much. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your perspective and decoding for us what this really means for India and the repercussions that it might have in the near future.
Thank you.
We have some breaking news coming in from India. Lok Sabha leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi has been given a notice on breach of privilege and contempt of House. The notice follows a complaint submitted by BJP leader Anurag Thakur to Lok Sabha Speaker on July 30th, while the monsoon session was still underway. The complaint alleges that Rahul Gandhi used unparliamentary and derogatory language against Amit Shah, who's the Home Minister.
Well, the notice also refers to a separate complaint filed on the 29th of July, also alleging the use of unparliamentary expressions by the Congress leader. Remember, during the now concluded monsoon session of the parliament, Rahul and other opposition leaders across parties had demanded an official statement and apology from the Union Home Minister over the excessive use of force by police during the Jantar Mantar protests in New Delhi. BJP leaders now allege that Rahul Gandhi made claims about Amit Shah without any evidence to substantiate them. So this, of course, follows the heated debate that happened within the parliament, within the lower house of the parliament, where Rahul Gandhi had made some remarks alleging that it was the Union Home Minister who had ordered the police action against student protesters, to which the BJP leaders, specifically the Union Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju, had objected to. And he said that if you don't have any evidence, then you must not make such serious accusations and allegations against the country's Home Minister.
Let's see how that plays out, Shreya, because this is a political storm indeed. And still talking about India, a political row has erupted between two of India's biggest parties over comments made by Congress leaders at an event. The incident has once again opened the Pandora's box on how easy it is for politicians to drag women in the name of political rivalry or personal vendetta.
And where does one draw the line? Well, while speaking at an event, the leader of opposition, Rahul Gandhi, questioned the idea behind Prime Minister Narendra Modi's interactions with foreign leaders, particularly the hugs or the hugplomacy, as it is popularly called in India. He then hugged fellow Congress leader Sandeep Dixit on stage, but Dixit jokingly asked if Rahul was thinking of the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni while hugging him.
इनके माइंड में घुस गया कि फॉरेन पॉलिसी इज दिस अब पता नहीं किसने डाला, कहां से घुसा कि भाई फॉरेन पॉलिसी का मतलब इमेजिन द इग्नोरेंस फॉरेन पॉलिसी।
एक चीज पूछ सकता हूं?
हाँ,
मेलनी समझ के तो नहीं पकड़ा था?
I have not reached there yet.
The remark has triggered widespread criticism for being sexist and belittling towards a foreign woman leader. The BJP hit back, calling the remark disgraceful and unbecoming of a leader of opposition or someone aspiring to become the Prime Minister of a country.
The Congress party has defended Rahul Gandhi, saying that he had not even mentioned Giorgia Meloni by name. Congress spokesperson Shama Mohammed criticized Prime Minister Modi's interactions with foreign leaders as well, saying handshakes were more appropriate in many cultures. But the issue and the conversation, remember, is much larger than one party or one politician's comment, viewers. The practice of targeting women in politics, or even women in general, to take a swipe at a political rival has almost become customary now. In the past, Bharatiya Janata Party leaders have targeted Congress MP Priyanka Gandhi Vadra as well. The 2025 remark of Ramesh Bidhuri promising new roads in a part of New Delhi and making them look like, quote, Priyanka's cheeks is an infamous incident.
Even during the recent West Bengal elections, former Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee was at the receiving end of many controversial statements from the BJP and other parties as well, including derogatory remarks about the lineage of her parents. But it does not stop here. Even women who are not actively involved in politics are not even being spared. Let's take actor Trisha's example, Shreya. Ever since Vijay became Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu in his maiden electoral victory, opposition parties have raked up the name of Trisha in several statements. The jibe they take is at Vijay, but the name used is of an actress.
And well, clearly she has no role in the dispute between the state government and the opposition, yet Trisha is dragged into this political war of words. The latest incident, viewers, brings back a simple question: where does one draw the line?
Let's move away from that. Every year on August 14th, India marks Partition Remembrance Day, a day before celebrating the anniversary of independence on August 15th. August 14th is also when Pakistan celebrated its Independence Day, while both countries marked the end of the British Raj in their own way. For some regions, it also brings back tragic memories of partition, which became synonymous with the loss of life, home, livelihood for millions.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi commemorated the day in a statement on social media platform X. An excerpt of the remarks read, and I quote him, "Today we mark the Partition Horrors Remembrance Day. We recall the courage of all those who were impacted by partition. It was a moment in history that tore apart several lives. Families were uprooted, loved ones were lost, and immense suffering was endured. The partition of 1947 is the largest forced mass displacement in modern history. Two states suffered the worst as they emerged as the biggest fault lines in this demarcation by the then British dispensation. Punjab and West Bengal saw millions paying the price, with as many as 12 to 20 million people getting displaced within days."
79 years ago, it was British lawyer Cyril Radcliffe who drew the international boundary of independent India and Pakistan. But the mass displacement and death during partition has been attributed to little knowledge that Radcliffe had of the region. The British official finalized the boundary in less than 6 weeks. And while the decision was made on August 13th, it was not made public until August 17th. Historians estimate that between 1 to 2 million people died in this displacement. Those who made it out alive and came to independent India with little to no belongings settled in north and northwestern states. Government data through December 1958 shows that the majority of the displaced settled in Punjab and West Bengal. India's now capital, Delhi, settled over 500,000 displaced during partition, but many displaced are still not part of the record, indicating that these numbers could be far higher.
While India's journey as a young democracy remains aspirational and millions will mark Saturday as the 80th Independence Day, the price of this independence has been high for many families that bore the brunt of colonial Britain's final decision before departure.
In the latest report, the Comptroller and Auditor General has found that the Green India Mission, one of the country's flagship afforestation and climate programs, has missed its forest cover target by 97.57%.
Well, the CAG says that the shortfall was driven by poor planning, weak coordination between schemes and chronic underfunding. A new CAG report tabled in the Parliament has revealed that the Green India Mission increased forest cover on only 0.034 million hectares against a target of 1.4 million hectares over the past decade. That means the program achieved just 2.43% of its target, leaving a 97.57% shortfall. The mission was launched under the National Action Plan on Climate Change to increase forest and tree cover, improve ecosystem services, and support forest-based livelihoods. But auditors say the implementation fell far short of expectations. In fact, the CAG found that the Green India Mission achieved only a fraction of its forest cover and forest quality targets, while receiving less than half of the approved budgetary support during 2015-16 to 2024-25.
The auditors also found that climate-vulnerable landscapes were often ignored, while less vulnerable areas were selected for projects. Planning failures were compounded by funding gaps. Against an approved outlay of 2,400 crore rupees, the mission received only 1,149.14 crore rupees, or 47.88% of the sanctioned amount over 10 years. The audit covered 16 states and union territories between 2015, 2016 and 2024-2025. According to the report, the biggest problem was lack of convergence. In another key finding, only Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh conducted any assessment of carbon sequestration or sequestration during the entire 2015-2025 period. Infrastructure worth 3.5 crore rupees, including flux towers meant to measure carbon absorption, was reportedly left idle because of poor maintenance planning.
All right, shifting our focus now to the southern Indian states. Let's talk about Karnataka, where the cabinet has cleared a controversial bill seeking tighter control over the use of government premises and public property. But the legislation has triggered a political storm, with the Bharatiya Janata Party alleging that the move is aimed at restricting the RSS, or the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, which is the ideological parent of the Bharatiya Janata Party ruling at the centre.
Officially called the Karnataka Regulation of Use of Government Premises and Public Property Bill, it has been drafted by the House or the Home Department, headed by Priyank Kharge, a vocal critic of the RSS. It is likely to be introduced in the ongoing monsoon session of the State Assembly. The bill will replace an executive order issued last year, which made prior permission mandatory for use of government premises. The proposed law makes prior government approval mandatory for rallies, meetings and private events on public land. The legislation applies to both registered and unregistered private entities, thereby bringing the RSS within the ambit of the proposed law. Private entities must seek permission 7 days before an event. Reports say offences under the law will be non-bailable and cognizable with proposed imprisonment of up to 3 years and a fine of 5 lakh rupees.
The proposed law is likely to have a direct impact on organizations like the RSS, which conducts shakhas or drills and other activities at public grounds and government school premises. Earlier, the Karnataka government had expressed concerns over the use of public property by the RSS. Last year, the state's Home Minister Priyank Kharge had written to the then Chief Minister Siddaramaiah seeking a ban on RSS activities in government schools, colleges and public spaces. Back then, Kharge had argued that such activities go against India's unity and the spirit of the Constitution. In June this year, Priyank Kharge had even written to the RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat asking him to clarify the organization's legal status and source of income. That letter came days after he questioned the legal provision under which the RSS is exempted from registration. Later, the RSS chief had responded to Kharge's letter saying only organizations which seek government funds require registration. Now, amid the allegations that the bill is designed to target the RSS, Karnataka's Home Minister Kharge has defended the proposed law. In a post on X, he said that the legislation merely regulates the use of public property and is not aimed at any particular institution, organization, society, or others. But political temperatures have already shot up. The Bharatiya Janata Party has hit back, calling the bill a backdoor attempt to control the RSS. The state BJP president B.Y. Vijayendra has even dared the D.K. Shivakumar government to ban the RSS. But remember, this is more than a battle over public spaces. It feeds into a much larger ideological battle between the Congress and the RSS. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi has repeatedly attacked the Sangh's ideology and its influence on Indian politics. In Karnataka, that long-running ideological clash now appears to be playing out through legislation, with the RSS once again at the center of the political crossfire.
Sanctions were once America's economic weapon of last resort. Under President Trump, they're becoming a regular instrument of geopolitical pressure. Now, Washington is promising Iran economic measures it says have never been seen before. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says unprecedented measures are coming. War Secretary Pete Hegseth says America can sustain its blockade of Iran indefinitely. The message is simple. If military pressure cannot force Tehran to bend, economic pressure will. But here's the problem. When sanctions become the answer to everything, do they still carry the same power? President Trump increasingly puts tariffs and sanctions in the same pressure toolbox. Make the economic cost painful enough, and the other side will surrender. Except the world is adapting. Countries are building alternative supply chains, payment systems, and trading relationships. That creates a dangerous paradox for Washington. The more America weaponizes access to its markets and financial system, the greater the incentive for others to find alternatives. Sanctions can hurt America's adversaries, but they're also weakening America's credibility. A sanction is powerful when the threat of it is feared. If another tariff or economic ultimatum is always coming, eventually the shock wears off. And Trump faces a problem at home too. Higher fuel prices and economic uncertainty are becoming political liabilities ahead of the midterms. So the question is not whether America can impose sanctions. It is whether America can keep using economic power as a weapon without making the world less dependent on America. Because when a weapon is used too often, it can lose its edge. And maybe it is time for Trump to revise his own old view, because sanctions used too frequently kill the dollar. America, digest that for a moment. And that is the verdict.
Well, that, Eric, clearly is a game of wait and watch, whether America, understands what other countries have been doing and whether it can adjust to the fact that other countries are now moving away from the dollar and trying to build their own alternative systems. Let's wait and see how that plays out. But right now, viewers, it's a wrap on this broadcast of Race to Power. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'm Eric Njoka. Namaskar.
Once a year, grown men in this city put on three-piece suits, or, well, at least a blazer, in 40-degree heat and call it a good idea. This is the distinguished gentleman's rite. It happens on the same day in over 100-odd countries. And it started, of all places, with a photograph. A bloke in Sydney saw visuals of a television character, remember Mad Men, and thought, why don't men dress like that anymore? Men don't gather like that anymore. So he put it online, a few mates, nice clothes, old motorcycles. That was 2012. Today it is one of the largest motorcycle events on earth. And we'll get to this, it isn't really about the motorcycles at all.
Motorcycling is about escaping things. It's about getting out there and getting away from the realities of your life and getting some time to yourself. But this is not about escapism. It's more about, in fact, confronting the things that we don't usually talk about. Men's health and mental illness. So well, we're taking it on the chin and riding on, but we're still talking about it, and I think that's a step in the right direction. So, there you go, folks. Gentlemen for a day, if not longer.